time.
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Oh, what's up, everybody? A good evening to you all. Welcome, dissidents, one and all. This is the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss. I am without Russell Dobular tonight, but don't you worry. I have a wonderful friend of the show, guest host from Brooklyn. Wait a minute. I thought he was from Brooklyn. This doesn't make sense, though. All right, hold on one second. Okay, so you all know Extra Bulla. I'm going to bring in Extra Bulla, but I'm a little confused because I know you're from Brooklyn, right, Extra Bulla?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
I like. Huh? Oh,
I'm just a little confused.
No, there's nothing to see. Nothing to see here. I used to be a locksmith, and I really wanted to come in and fix these shelves.
Okay.
For Russell. It's kind of like a little surprise, while he's
while he's gone. All right. I mean, they are a lovable trademark of the show the way they are. Do they look a little straighter, or is that just my imagination?
I think they got worse.
Mm-hmm.
They got worse since I've been here. But speaking of Russell, he's supposed to fly out today, right? When he's supposed to go to India today?
Yeah, he told me he was flying out of Newark.
Right. I asked him about that too. I said, "What airline are you taking?" And he told me, he said he's not taking a plane. And I said, "What do you mean you're not taking a plane?" He said, "Don't worry, I'm catching a ride." Okay.
Oh, he's taking a balloon.
Yeah, the Chinese hooked him up.
Chinese, yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so
hands.
They're so plentiful here now. Here it's like and it's much cheaper than flying United or American Airlines. That's for sure. You just hang on for dear life, wear a coat. It gets a little chilly up in the.
You don't have to check a bag. It's all carry on. It's all one chamber, right?
Right. And just like I said, hang on. It's a long trip to India. So
just make sure, just a word of advice. If you should grab a drink from his refrigerator, he's very, very meticulous about his food and drink. He keeps track of those grape sodas. So if you took a grape soda, make sure you replenish it because he keeps a tally of those. You'll see a little like running tally on his fridge, with the, what do they call it, where you cross out every 5 ones? And he'll notice if one is missing. That's what those numbers are. You probably saw those. I don't know if you knew what they were, but that's what they are. They're the grape sodas. So make sure if you take one, you put it back. Well, yeah, what's that? What do you think it was?
That's a prison calendar. When you do the 1, 2, 3, 4
yeah,
zip.
Right. That's it. Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's what that is. That's his grape soda log. So you just want to make sure that you replenish.
I thought it was in the joint. I didn't know. I didn't know about the grape sodas. Now there's an Aldi's nearby, so I'm gonna go hit that up.
Hit that up. It's got to be the same brand though. Same brand. Don't get the Aldi's brand. If it's Welch's, you got to replace it with Welch's. Otherwise, he's really going to know something's up. Well, he's not going to know. His account's going to be off, but there's going to be a different kind, a different brand in there. He'll be on to you. Extra Bulla obviously has jokes up his sleeve. We all love Extra Bulla. I'm going to be referring to him as Warren since that's his name, but he is here co-hosting this evening. He has his own YouTube show, The Extra Bulla Show. Please post a link to that in the chat before we're done. I'm going to post a link in the description of this show. Please go over and subscribe to that program. It's a very, very funny program, very smart program. He was gracious enough to host Russell and myself on that show, and so we were eager to return the favor. And now that Russell is gone and he has that empty apartment, Extra Bulla put his trade to work and made his way in.
There's so much room in here, dude.
He's gone until March 8th, so you could stay if you want, I suppose.
His bed is really soft too. I told him I was going to sleep on the floor, but that's just between us and our friends here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if his Wi-Fi is not great in India, he might not be able to watch this for a few days anyway. He's in the air now. He's not even on the ground yet. He's probably flying somewhere over the Middle East now, I would imagine. Tusker for the $5 for Extra Bulla co-hosting. Thank you, Tusker. That's wonderful of you. Very generous. Tip jar is out, folks. Our super chats are welcome. They help keep the show going. Let me throw our little logo up here. I almost forgot. By the way, if any of you didn't notice, we revamped our intro a little bit there. We're going to workshop that a little more, but since our regular intro says at the end, here's Russell and Keaton, I figured now would be a good time to put the new one up since Russell and Keaton are not here tonight. But Nick INGVOLDSTAD is the songwriter and musician / producer of that track. And so thank you, Nick. Great job once again. Really dig that. Nick's Bandcamp link is in the description of this video. So lots to talk about this evening. As I mentioned, Russell may be in India, but we got our own bowl of vindaloo cooking tonight because we got a very spicy show for you guys. So let me ask you something, Warren. You could be honest with me. I know you were excited when I invited you to co-host, and you watched the show a lot, so I figured you'd be excited and happy for the opportunity. But when I told you we were going to be covering these topics, you must have thought a little piece of yourself. You must have thought, what did I get myself into?
I pretty much said, this is what's going to happen to me tonight. So
he's ready. He has his kill switch set to go.
I'm going to cancel myself before anyone else can cancel me. So that's all part of the self-deprecating humor. It's self-justice is what I like to call it. So exactly. Yeah, I was really, afraid tonight, but afraid in a good way. So we got to have these conversations. We have to, because we can't be afraid to talk to people about this kind of stuff. And it's just getting to the point where people are just so afraid of being canceled that we just don't have any communication at all. So we have to do that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. And so we have 3 main segments that we're going to get to, but of course we want to begin with some headlines, folks. So we're going to go to the interwebs here and pull some headlines out of the news. This was a pretty big headline. The legendary Pulitzer Prize winning reporter Seymour Hersh, who gains fame in 1969 when he exposed the My Lai massacre. He won the prize for that the following year. He came out with a Substack article yesterday entitled How America Took Out the Nord Stream Pipeline. And he claims to have spoken with an anonymous source who confirmed to him this very long timeline of how and why the United States was behind the destruction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline here, as you can see, going from Russia to Germany. Now, we're obviously not going to read the whole thing because we would be here all night, but in the article, he basically lays out 3 main points. First, that the motive for us knocking out Nord Stream 2 was quite clear. We were afraid that Russia's ability to provide cheap natural gas to Europe would give them a sort of geopolitical edge if and when the war in Ukraine should start, because obviously Germany and much of Europe would be dependent on cheap natural gas from Russia, and they wouldn't want to do anything to jeopardize any sort of business relationship they had with them. So that's point number one. Point number two, according to this source of his, plans to sabotage Nord Stream 2 began pre-invasion of Ukraine back in 2021, which bolsters my theory. I would assume it's Warren's as well, although you can speak for yourself, that the West and the United States obviously had a feeling that this war was going to break out about when it did. And not only did we do nothing to stop it, but we actually planned for it by planning to destroy Nord Stream 2 back in 2021. This source also claims that remote explosives were planted on the pipeline in June and then, of course, detonated in September. Now, you can say, well, these are anonymous sources, or in this case, one source. Obviously, for those who know Seymour Hersh's body of work, he has embraced some theories that some people think are perhaps fringe and controversial, but his reporting has been fairly consistent over the years and reputable. So this is nothing that I think most people in our circles didn't suspect for a long time, but now you have one step closer to confirmation. What do you think, Warren?
Yeah, it all makes sense too. I mean, it all began back in 2014, and then the whole prelude to weakening Russia, which was on Obama's mind, and of course, it's been on the mind of a lot of presidents throughout the years too. So, and then leading up to it, and of course, they even admitted as much, saying that we've got to get rid of that pipeline. We've got to get rid of that pipeline. And then all of a sudden, oopsie, it blew up. The Russians, who have the actual valve to shut it off, to think that they would actually go in and blow this thing up themselves is ludicrous at best, And a lot of these some of the folks in the left circles that we like to think of as not exactly journalistic top shelf, talking about Seymour Hersh like he's a blogger. Did you see that? They were calling him.
It's incredible.
He's just a blogger.
It's
like one of the greatest journalists of our time. Oh, he's just a blogger. So
there's this
deflections. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, it's just, they're going to, of course, somebody whose reputation is pretty much, untouchable, like Seymour Hersh's, they're going to preach to these little cults about, that, convince them who don't know of Seymour Hersh, who think maybe he's just like a hack or something like that. But those of us who've been around for a while, we know better. And his reputation does precede him in this case.
Yeah, I mean, there's such incredible cowards. There's this Twitter handle, I think it's called Post Left Watch, which I started following because they posted the Crystal and Kyle video that we used. And I assumed that they were like, for lack of a more sophisticated term, based. But turns out they're not so based. They are this handle that really just pokes holes and pokes fun at all of, I guess, what they consider the post-left, the Greenwalds, the Taibis. And yeah, a bunch of people responded to their piece on this by, saying, well, Seymour Hersh is on Substack because no major publication will take him seriously anymore, which just exposes, once again, the just utter intellectual bankruptcy and cowardice of these people to totally corrupt the media to the point where the media just feeds these brain-dead morons the just, grub that they want, just the, like, slop-feeding hogs. And then when people like Seymour Hersh, like Greenwald, like Taibbi figure, well, we can't get a foothold in this space anymore because it's just too far gone, they go to Substack, and then these same people say, oh, well, you have no credibility because you're on Substack, right? It's like, heads I win, tails you lose. So it's just incredible. But sorry, no.
I was just going to say that, it's in the propaganda steeped around Russia in general over the last 50 years, at least as long as I've been alive, it's really hard to overcome that. So it's easy to ride that wave of of saying, oh, well, this is just he's just a hack. He's just he's just a blogger, that sort of thing. And it's just ridiculous. It's just deflection from the journalistic inadequacies that a lot of these so-called news outlets seem to think they have, but they don't.
Yeah, I mean, this piece that he wrote, I don't know how long it is, but, from reading it, the time it took to read it, my guess as someone who's written these sorts of things, it's probably about 25 to 3,500 words. It's quite lengthy. What are the odds that he just made it up? Because this isn't a situation where he could have misinterpreted something. Like, either he heard this from a source, or he just decided out of the blue to make up that a source told him we blew up the pipeline, and he, in his imagination, came up with this whole story. Like, come on, what is more likely? It's not even close, in my view.
What's the end game? What has he got to gain out of lying about it? That's a big
Substack
question.
subscribers, man. He's a grifter. Ooh, he's getting for $5 a month. He's getting some signups out of that bitch. Yeah, you'll learn the game sooner or later. You're still new, still green. This guy over here. Why ride Jimmy Dore's balls when you can make up stories about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline?
Right.
Exactly. Ellen already loves Extra Bulla. See, you already have a fan. Thank you, Ellen. We appreciate that very much.
Ellen's a sweetheart. Thank you, Ellen.
Ellen is a sweetheart, indeed. Absolutely. We love Ellen. Ellen is also a Patreon supporter. Patreon supporters get bonus videos and call-in access to all these shows. We're going to give our patron scroll shout-out in a few minutes, but we got some headlines we got to get to first. So we're going to go to headline number 2 here. Some Democrats are worried about Kamala Harris's political prospects. At a pivotal point in Biden's term, many party activists are not sure the vice president has shown she is up to winning the top job. So there is some chirping within the party about boosting her, or ousting her, I should say, booting her off of the 2024 ticket, since it looks now like Joe Biden will formally announce his re-election bid any week, if not any day. And there's fear about putting Harris on the ticket, because if Kamala gets on the ticket and Biden wins a second term, that means Harris is the prohibitive frontrunner in 2028, which means a Republican is certain to win the presidency in 2028. So they're getting a little nervous about this. A lot of rank and file Democrats are getting nervous about this, including Elizabeth Warren, who, it's funny when you see, look at the contrast, look at her glowing praise for Joe Biden in this radio interview, and then look at how her tone shifts when Kamala's name is mentioned.
Elizabeth Warren.
Speaking of you're having run for president, should Joe Biden run again for president? He'll be 86 by the time his second term is over.
Yes, he should run again.
Why?
And he is running again, because he has gotten a tremendous amount done. It's been 2 years. He's had the skinniest possible majority in the United States Senate and only a very small majority in the House. And yet look at what we've done. I'll pick one that I just love. Besides the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the first time we've raised corporate taxes in 30 years. We also got the biggest climate package we've ever gotten. It goes into effect right now.
By the way, I'll just pause it for a second. She's not alone in heaping this kind of praise. Jayapal did the exact same thing, the CPC leader, when challenged about the fact that polling showed most Americans thought Joe Biden accomplished little to nothing in these first 2 years. She gave pretty much the same exact answer, but let's let her finish.
The $35.
I don't want to talk over a woman of color. That's rude.
Cap for seniors on insulin. Think about these things. Seniors are not going to have to spend more than $2,000 a year on prescription drugs. But look at the chips. This is how I love to say this, Bill. The chips and science, Bill. When I ran for Senate a decade
we need her
ago,
on the ticket. That's what we need.
I said one of the things I think we need to do as a nation, we need to double our investment in science. That is exactly what we did last summer, and Joe Biden signed that into law. He showed he's willing to wade into the fights. He waded into the fight on student loan debt.
Wade back better, wade in better. That's his slogan. We're wading into the fights. But look at, so you have that glowing praise of Joe Biden, and we'll just look at this shift.
If he's that old in his second term, the vice presidency becomes even more important. Should Kamala Harris be his choice the second time around?
I really want to defer to what makes Biden comfortable on his team. I've known Kamala for a long
Just the
time.
glowing
I like
praise
Kamala.
for Biden. And then
Knew her back when she was an attorney general, and I was still
look, I like her.
teaching,
Yeah,
and
that's
we worked
really
on the
up to
housing
him.
crisis together. So we go
Yeah,
but they have to be a team, and my sense is they are. I don't mean that by suggesting I think there are any problems. I think they are.
Wow. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, definitely the shift in tone picked up there. And it wasn't just Elizabeth Warren. It was also James Clyburn. Now, when you are the sitting vice president, when you are an establishment sellout hack like Kamala Harris, and James Clyburn is lukewarm on you, that's how you know you got no swag. Zero swag whatsoever, right? But let's hear James Clyburn.
Oh, God. I'm scared.
Possible that he could face a challenge, should he face a challenge within his own party? So it's possible that he could, but he should not. He is deserving of this party's support. He is deserving of the country's support. He certainly has every ounce of my strength in his re-election bid. He has not announced yet, but when he does, I'll be there with him. And I hope he does soon after his speech tomorrow night. Do you think Kamala Harris should still be his running mate?
Well, I'm going to leave that up to him. Compared to what people said, I never told him anything about who ought to be on the
I
ticket.
never pushed her on him.
Stuff all the time.
That's on him.
I believe very strongly that candidates for president or in governor, name it, they should pick the people they are comfortable with.
Do you like her? If you had your druthers, would you have her on a ticket?
Oh, I like her. Yes, I do like her.
But that's the same thing. Okay, that's
I like her. Yes, I like her. It doesn't say yes, I'd put her on the ticket. No, I like her. I like her. And so I think that's the real concern. I don't think the concern is so much that she dragged the Biden ticket down. I think the concern is, oh my God, what if he wins and then she's the presumptive nominee going into 2028? Then the Republicans could put up literally whoever they want, and it's an automatic win.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and they know that too. I mean, it seems like the Democrats are inadequate and stupid and are they know exactly what they're doing, and they are I believe they're shitting their pants right now thinking about Kamala going against like a Ron DeSantis or maybe even Trump too. I mean, it would just be I think at this point they're probably looking more at Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who probably did a better job as VP than the actual VP herself. So they're looking at every nook and cranny to try and get away from her, I would imagine.
I mean, there were rumors that Warren was trying to finagle her way onto the ticket to replace Kamala, which is why she gave that sort of lukewarm answer on whether or not Kamala should be on the ticket again, which is possible. I mean, that seems like that could be plausible. We'll wait to see if Seymour Hersh has any sources on that, though, before we totally run with that and embrace that theory. But yeah, that sounds like it could be something. Speaking of James Clyburn, our third headline of the night here. This is picked up by justthenews.com. This was originally reported by Fox. So Democrat James Clyburn's campaign paid grandson over $86,000 in management fees, filings show. It is legal for federal politicians to use campaign money to pay family members, but ethics experts generally frown upon the practice. South Carolina Democrat James Clyburn paid his grandson more than $86,000 in campaign fees and over $50,000 in rent to a company run by his son-in-law during the 2022 midterms, according to federal election filings. Other federal filings show that Clyburn's campaign paid 49 Magnolia Blossoms LLC $57,500 in rent. Clyburn's son-in-law, Walter A. Reed, is the registered agent of the company, according to South Carolina business records reviewed by Fox News Digital. Clyburn's campaign did not respond to comments. It's just incredible, the grift that is just so out in the open with either Nancy Pelosi and the stock trading or this stuff. And this is why, I mean, I hate to keep harping on this because some people this rubs the wrong way, but you've heard me say it a million times, Warren. At a certain point, are voters not to blame for just rewarding these politicians time after time, no matter what? I mean, these guys get challengers. People run against them. They get nowhere. I mean, at a certain point, it's like you can do anything inside this party without consequence.
Yeah, and especially like, for old schoolers like Clyburn, who's been there forever. I mean, you see the same thing with Turtle Boy down in Kentucky. They're not going to run him out anytime soon because he's so entrenched in that state. He has those built-in voters that are always going to back him no matter what. And, maybe part of that is, I would say probably a minuscule amount of that is organic. The rest of it is just all party machine driven. The state DNC makes sure that these candidates do not get primaried and because they're doing the Lord's work, as we say down south, and by the Lord I mean the party's work. So as long as he's still playing ball, he'll always keep that seat till he's ready to give it up.
Yep. No, absolutely. And the McConnell example is a good one too, because his approval rating is not even that high in his home state. His approval rating's pretty low. He's fairly unpopular. But there's just this air of inevitability around these candidates. Like, it just becomes a self-fulfilling idea that they are untouchable, and therefore no one tries. And by no one tries, I don't mean no one runs against them, but I mean no one gets involved in those campaigns because, this is a David versus Goliath battle that we just can't possibly win. And so those campaigns never pick up any steam, despite the fact that some of the candidates are actually quite good, but we just don't hear of them. All right, get your wardrobe ready for our next headline here. You know what I'm talking about. Extra Bulla comes prepared here. There we go. Our final headline of the night. Sam Smith's satanic Grammys performance slammed, sponsored by Pfizer. Now, we're not going to comment on the Pfizer part because we'll get thrown off the air. But you have Marjorie Taylor Greene here tweeting, the Grammys featured Sam Smith's demonic performance and was sponsored by Pfizer. And the Satanic Church now has an abortion clinic in, I suppose, New Mexico that requires its patients to perform a satanic ritual before services. American Christians need to get to work. And here you could see the photos here. We're not going to play any of the song because of potential copyright infringement. We're already going to end up in arbitration over this show, so we don't need to have that battle and a copyright infringement violation. But here he is again. And, this reminded me, this story, the thing that's interesting to me about this story is it reminded me of a segment that we did on Sarah Wagenknecht a couple weeks ago, the leftist German politician who drew, I thought, a very insightful distinction between social conservatism and cultural conservatism, because the media is trying to play it up like everyone who was rubbed the wrong way by this is some sort of right-wing, puritanical, prudish, religious zealot, and therefore must be a sort of Christian right lunatic with like backwards, bigoted views on social issues. And what that distinction between social conservatism and cultural conservatism really nails is that, no, that's not necessarily true. Like, as we found out in the midterms and in the Kansas referendum vote, a lot of these people out in the middle of the country and down south, even the Christian ones, right? Even the Bible thumpers, a decent amount of those people are actually socially fairly liberal. That, you wouldn't have had the Kansas result you had if that were not the case. You wouldn't have had the result in the midterms that you had if that were not the case. And so it's not that everyone who kind of felt sort of assaulted by that or put off by that is some, just religious right-wing zealot. It's not that they're socially conservative. It's that a lot of them are culturally conservative. They don't necessarily want to force their values on anybody else, but they'd like to be able to watch the Grammys without a satanic sex show right in the middle of it. They just don't like that. They like the church. They like the values that they have, and they get the sense that the TV people, Hollywood people, media people, resent them for those values. And this really emboldens right-wing social conservatism, because it allows people like Marjorie Taylor Greene to credibly make the case that, see, look at what these Hollywood elites think of you. They just want to shove it up your ass as far as they can, as hard as they can, as often as they can, even in what's supposed to be a fairly benign family program like the Grammy Awards. And then, when they hear people, spreading, pro-choice, pro-LGBT messages out of Hollywood, they associate the people who are spreading those socially liberal messages, which I would certainly sign on for, they associate it with the people who also put on the satanic sex shows, right, in the middle of primetime TV. And it makes it very easy for the right wing to say, hey, look, they're pro-choice because they're Satanists, because they hate children, because they hate the family. I am a family man. I am a husband. I'm a dad. I take great pride in calling myself both of those things. I'm staunchly pro-choice, not because I hate children and hate the family. That's obviously not who I am. I'm pro-choice simply because I don't think it is the state's business to tell a woman what to do when she is in a situation where she feels she can or should not carry her pregnancy to term. But this shit really makes it harder to spread that kind of message, because this stuff really sends the signal that, no, actually, people in New York and Los Angeles, not only do we not respect you and not like you, we want to shove our contempt for you in your face every chance we get. That's how I think that plays.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's exactly what it is too. I mean, in 2023, people are so compartmentalized with their entertainment choices now. Back in the days, the Emmy, I mean, the Grammys used to be a way bigger deal, because this is before streaming, and before you had all these other YouTube. Now you could watch Grammy clips on YouTube. You don't have to watch the show in itself. So them doing this is just, it does scream like kind of a fuck you to the people out in the rural areas and stuff like that, who really aren't really watching this anyway that much. But even the ones who are just like, come on. Even they're not stupid. They know they're being trolled by Hollywood. They know Hollywood has been like this for decades. And then that really does like a lot of these conservatives will take this opportunity to take that and blame it for all the other things that they dislike, like all the stuff that you were talking about. So it's just an opportunity for one person, for one group to say, okay, now I have carte blanche to shit on the whole idea of left ideas, because the Emmys gave me permission. I mean, the Grammys gave me permission to do that. So it's ridiculous,
Yeah, no, I think that is 100% right. We're going to give a shout out to our Patreon community here. You can support the show at patreon.com/do-dissidents. Those who support the show get call-in access to these regularly scheduled live streams. We're on every Thursday night at 8, every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Really helps keep the show going. The super chats are super helpful as well, so the tip jar is always out if you are feeling generous. We love you for that. For those who stumbled in late, you may notice Warren is guest hosting. He is in for Russell Dobular, literally in for Russell Dobular, right in Russell Dobular's chair there. Yeah, making himself at home. But Extra Bulla, as his stage name is the name of his YouTube show. So we encourage you guys to, of course, go and subscribe to his program as well. And thank you guys very much for your continued support. Our patron supporters are scrolling across the bottom of the screen here, so we want to thank you guys. You are the backbone of this show. You can also go to dodissidents.substack.com and support us there, or sign up for free if you like. Russell had a request of me, because Russell is in the air right now, so he's not able to be watching right now. He is on an airplane, or as Warren has confirmed to me, he is in a balloon. Yeah, floating over the Middle East right now on his way to northern India. But we start the show here at 5,900, and I believe it was 36 subscribers, so we're up to 5,943. Can we hit 6,000 before he lands? That was what he wanted me to ask you guys. Can you help us get to 6,000 so by the time Russell lands in India, he will see that we have reached the mountaintop of 6,000 subscribers before he is bitten by a deadly viper? Let him have that. Let him have that moment where at least he can see the light of having reached 6,000 subscribers. By the way, I was joking with Russell before he left about watch out you don't get bitten by a snake because he's going to be sleeping outside in the middle of the desert. Turns out, no lie, apparently the deadliest snake in India is actually named the Russell's Viper. That's what it's called. That is not a lie.
Nice.
That is not a joke. That is not a lie. That is actually real. The deadliest snake in India is called Russell's Viper. So we hope that is not foreshadowing, of course.
Yeah, that sounds like some definite foreshadowing right there. I hope he finds a snake bite kit that like lots of them and keeps them on him. So hopefully he'll be okay.
Yeah, man. I am just not an adventurer in that way. I never was. God bless people who love to travel. I respect people who have that thirst. I never did. I feel like I could satisfy my curiosities about the world in other ways. It's just so much hassle. It's the old Jew in me that's just like, he's on a plane now for 13 hours. What happens when he lands the plane? How in India do you get from the airplane to wherever the hell you got to go? How? It must be incredibly confusing, incredibly hectic, incredibly stressful. You're going to have to get a shuttle somewhere or a cab somewhere or a train somewhere. India is a very big country. It's not easy to get from point A to point B in India, especially when you don't speak the language. You have no idea where you're going, who to ask. These are the kinds of things I think about when I think of traveling. I don't think of the Taj Mahal. I don't think of the Eiffel Tower. I think, how do I get from the airplane to baggage claim to whatever taxi or shuttle or bus I'm going to have to take to whatever Airbnb or hotel I'm going to stay in, right? It's all that logistical stuff that just strikes me as a nightmare. That's why I've never really been into it.
I'm not a worldly person myself. So the only thing I can think of is that my frame of reference is that he has some sort of transportation like they had in Raiders of the Lost Ark, so I'm not trying to offend any Indian folks or anything like that. I'm sure you have more modern stuff, but I just think of just like this little 3-wheeled thing, and
we're just a couple of
he's reading the newspaper, and then the guy's driving, and he's like, "Where to, Dr. Jones?" Because he makes them call him Dr. Jones, even though his name's Ross. That's what I'm picturing in this mind is his adventure over in India. So,
well, we will see. His plane left at 11, so he is 9 hours and 45 minutes in. So he's still got another 4 hours to go. Man, that is what we in the tribe call a schlep. That's called a schlep. That's what we say. All righty, folks.
I couldn't do 13 hours. I couldn't do that. I'm 6'4". If I don't get the exit row, I'm screwed, right? And I can't afford first class, so I'm gonna be like kissing knees for 13 hours, and then I get off the plane, and then it's just like I wouldn't even need a cab. I would just have all that potential kinetic energy, and as soon as I leave the plane, I would just leap into the air and get to my destination. Save a bunch of money, but probably really shitty on the knees. So,
well, that was a great Lewis Black routine. He said, "I hear New Zealand is a beautiful country," and he says, "Part of me believes New Zealand is a beautiful country, but on the other hand, after 18 hours on a plane, any landmass would be beautiful to me." Right. And I think that pretty much says it. All right, let's go into our first long-form segment of the evening, shall we? We're going to get the party started here. All right, let's take a look. So, folks, we mentioned Seymour Hersh published a Substack article. That article got about 6,000 likes. This article, also posted on Walker Bragman's Substack, hasn't gotten nearly the same positive response, and I think for pretty good reason. He dabbled into the ball riding world himself, trying to, dick ride Jimmy Dore a bit here, and so we're going to comment on his ball riding. We'll ball ride on his ball riding. We'll have double layered ball riding. I hope you rested those glutes and those hamstrings, Warren, because we got a lot of ball riding coming up right now.
I'm ready to rock.
Ready to rock? Okay, good. Here we go. Get ready. Jimmy Dore is very pro-employer work contracts. All right, so this is Walker Bragman's expose on Jimmy Dore's independent contractor agreements that he has the people who work on his show sign. I'm not going to read this whole thing. The first is a preamble for, I guess, I don't know, the 9 people reading this article who don't know who Jimmy Dore is. Like he really sets it up how Jimmy Dore is a YouTube personality and comedian, as if everybody in this space doesn't already know. But okay, he goes on for a long time about Jimmy Dore's, supposed pro-worker politics, blah, blah, blah. The agreement from 4Dore Productions, noted here as 4DP, includes clauses that are very protective of the company and Dore, legal experts told Important Context, which is the name of his Substack here. The document contains a thorough 9-part, 3-page-long confidentiality section effectively prohibiting contractors from discussing anything they learned about Dore, his wife, or their collaborators on the job, including details about their business, personal lives, finances, investment, and more, as you could see the exhibit there. The agreement is a stark departure from Dore's public commentary. In the past, Dore criticized former President Trump's use of confidentiality agreements with volunteers, calling them very right-wingy. If those people want to do that, you're a volunteer and you want to do that, again, you're just a moron. Dore cracked. That was when he was on TYT, by the way, is when they did that segment. So, obviously a lot has changed since then, to say the least here. The consequences for workers who breach Dore's confidentiality section or another extensive section requiring contractors to sign away rights to their work product can be severe under the agreement. Breaches and even threatened breaches constitute immediate and irreparable harm, entitling Dore's company to equitable non-monetary relief, meaning contractors could be ordered to refrain from the activity. The agreement further stipulates that breaches entitle Dore's company to liquidated damages, which are agreed upon damages for failing to meet a specific contractual obligation in the amount of $10,000 per breach. So these NDAs, much like a non-compete, are very difficult to enforce because of the arbitrary nature of them. He obviously cites a Rutgers professor here from the Rutgers Law School. They have to be reasonable forecasts at the time of contracting of the harm, which this one isn't because it's $10,000 irrespective of what the harm is. He goes on to mention that as a preventative measure, it keeps people from, loose-lipped talks at bars about Jimmy Dore's personal life or whatever they may have learned, broadcasting from his garage. He broadcasts out of his home. And so that's basically the story when it comes to the confidentiality agreement part. There's a fairly draconian penalty that theoretically could be enforced against someone if there was a breach of that. We have no knowledge that there ever were any breaches of any of these things that ever was enforced against somebody. It would be very, very difficult. But there's another thing here called forced arbitration. So the 4DP contractor agreement includes forced arbitration for disputes except in certain circumstances like union busting. In arbitration, parties submit disputes and claims to a chosen arbitrator, in this case, one affiliated with the American Arbitration Association, rather than going through the courts. Although common in many work contracts, sometimes preferred in union workplaces, and often faster than litigation, arbitration can present obstacles to relief for workers. For example, it deprives workers of their ability to be heard by a jury. The 4DP contract spells this out explicitly, and then it goes on to list the sort of drawbacks of forced arbitration on employees, or in this case, these are independent contractors. Now, for some alternative perspective on this, Aaron Mate decided to vouch for Jimmy Dore in typical buzzsaw fashion here. I'm just going to read through this thread. I've tried to stay out of spats that don't involve me directly, but this hit piece by Walker Bragman on Jimmy Dore is too pathetic to ignore. Walker provides no evidence, just relies on the resentment of bitter TYT liars and faults Jimmy for enforcing standard contract provisions. So the second half of the article that Bragman wrote is basically a hit piece on how difficult it is to work with Jimmy Dore. And Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian actually gave him an interview for this article. So they were certainly in on this, right? Mate goes on, JD is faulted for binding workers to respect his privacy via non-disclosures, which bar discussing anything they learned about Dore, his wife, or their collaborators on the job, including details like I read about their business, personal lives, finances, investment, and more. Scream face. NDAs are pretty standard. Does Jimmy not have the right to privacy? He does. That's why a TYT producer even has to admit that this provision lines up with the kind of person who may have had issues with workers in the past and wants to protect themselves. He goes on. The other of Jimmy's harsh provisions is that in the case of disputes, employees commit to forced arbitration. But down below, Walker admits, as we just read, that arbitration is common in many work contracts, sometimes preferred in union workplaces, and often faster and, of course, cheaper, oftentimes, than going through the courts. After admitting that arbitration is common and even preferred by unions, Walker compensates by claiming that arbitration deprives workers of their ability to be heard by a jury. Yes, and it also deprives everyone involved of time-consuming court cases and heavy legal costs. Now he gets angry here. Having zilch to go on, Walker Bragman turns to Jimmy's ex-colleagues at the middle-aged McCarthyites, which is what he calls TYT. He maybe doesn't realize they've already been caught lying about Jimmy, so he lets them lie again. Anna, the first fabulist, claims that Jimmy made comments about her legs. No, the original allegation, the one that TYT tried to fake me to him over to distract from calling me a Russian agent, is that he made a joke about her clothes accounting to nice news skirt. Cenk, the other fabulist, confirmed that Dore's conflicts with his colleagues were a factor in the split that occurred between the company and JD in 2019. Walker deploys the passive voice to obscure that Jimmy quit TYT because he didn't want to work for them. On top of relying on known liars to falsely paint Jimmy as anti-worker, it also didn't occur to Walker Bragman that one of his sources, union buster Cenk Uygur, is not exactly the model of pro-worker behavior. That's some important context to omit. Obviously, TYT quite famously resisted his shop's efforts to unionize with IATSE out there in Los Angeles, and then they finally settled upon some sort of deal, and now they are finally a union shop over there. But originally, of course, Cenk tried to basically dissuade them from forming a union or joining the local union, I should say. So, the name of his blog there is called Important Context, and I think this whole piece lacks important context. Because I can tell you, I dabbled in entry-level show business. Warren, you said you lived in Hollywood for some time as well. The claim against Jimmy here is that as a supposed leftist, as a supposed pro-worker, left-wing political commentator, he should be better than the norm. I think people have more or less agreed that these are fairly standard. Maybe that $10,000 figure is a little out of left field, but other than that, the NDA part of it is fairly standard, and certainly the forced arbitration part of it is also very standard, as we will demonstrate in just a couple of moments here. But I think the really important context here that I think a lot of people need to understand, and this is a bit of I don't know if I would say a red pill or a black pill, but it does sort of break the fourth wall in the sense that when you're a YouTuber and you're a podcaster and you're a commentator, you are in show business. Like, let's not make any mistake, right? This is showbiz. Show business is tough on workers. That's why everybody, I mean, how many friends of yours have tried to make it in Hollywood or as comics or as musicians? What is it? It's long hours for shitty pay. It's gig work. It's transient. It comes and goes. It sucks. And yes, this is a contract that maybe I personally would not take if I had aspirations to grow within the business, because I would never want to sign an NDA myself, because I aspire to be one of these loudmouths who could say whatever the hell he wants. But out in Los Angeles, you have a lot of people, as I'm sure you know, who do this stuff for a living. They are sound engineers for a living. They are producers. They are staff writers for a living. And they don't necessarily aspire to be more than that. They just need gigs to keep money coming in. The gigs are contractor gigs. These are not employer-employee gigs. And so there's no benefits. There's no insurance. There's no paid time off. It is you show up for the gig, you do the gig, and you get paid. It sucks that show business works that way. I mean, show business works people to death. So for everybody who are upset about whatever harshness of these contracts, let's just grant Walker Bragman and all the people who were in on this little hit piece here that, yes, it sucks working for Jimmy Dore. It's long hours. It's shitty pay. And he put certain things in the contract that put these workers at a big sort of disadvantage, let's say, should a conflict come to be. That's the way, that's my experience in show business on the entry level. And everyone I know, it's the same thing. They work 16-hour days as gig workers with no benefits, no paid leave, no nothing. And in show business especially, you have the problem of forced arbitration because you're dealing with public figures. Where do you think these Me Too cases go? What, you hear so-and-so was accused of doing this. What do you think? The story ends there? Of course the story doesn't end there. They pay out settlements, but you never hear about them because there are arbitration contracts at all of these studios, right? Because these are public figures. They have to be very protective of their reputation, especially in this day and age. We are a litigious culture to start. Add the Me Too stuff. And of course, these guys are going to be very, very guarded about how they expose themselves.
And we're a litigious culture too, but we're also in a digital age of people being able to hack your information. This wasn't heard of like 20 years ago. Right nowadays, it's just like any kind of social media presence, you could get hacked there. And so like these NDAs, I think when people hear like non-disclosure agreement, they think about like the Harvey Weinstein days and the stigma around those NDAs and what went on with Harvey Weinstein, not Harvey Firestein. He's a good guy. Harvey Weinstein. But there's certain levels, there's certain degrees of NDAs too. I mean, I worked at grocery stores where they told us, okay, you have to sign if you want to work here, you got to sign this to say that you don't talk about the company, like the inner workings and that sort of thing. It's very standard operating procedure, whether you love him or hate him, he is an entertainer. And he has to abide by this. And plus he works out of his home too. So there's that added level of, people coming into his home, right? That's his, his personal place. Like we were talking earlier, if he had a studio, okay, that's one thing. But when he's bringing people into his home, and I'm not talking about just like, Kurt Metzger and, the usuals. We're talking about anybody that comes to work for Jimmy, and who knows how many people he's got on his staff, and he's also a stand-up comedian. That's how he makes his bones. I mean, yes, the YouTube show does well, and probably helps market him as a comedian, but his main job is a working on the road comedian doing specials. And it's just standard operating procedure. So this is just like nitpicking and dick riding, because like your Walter Bragmans and your TYTs are just stagnant right now when it comes to interest in anything that they have. So they have to desperately cling to Jimmy, whose numbers are rising. You can't deny that. You could look at his subscription numbers, and they're constantly going. He was held back for a long time, but now he's going through the roof, and they know this. And so a lot of these people on the so-called left are doing this dick riding because he's the money horse. He's the one in the race that's going to win. And so they're just they're just trying to milk as much as they can off of them. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of a version of what a lot of YouTubers do, which is they comment on beefs between other YouTubers and other podcasters, and that creates interest, right? Because, like I said, show business. It's show business. This is a show first and foremost. As much as we might envision ourselves to be revolutionaries in our dreams, right? When we turn on YouTube and we go live and we make the graphics and we market the shows and we put on the shows, we're thinking, how many people are going to tune in? How are we going to grow this thing? How are we going to build this out? How are we going to put on a show? It is ultimately a show. And I think to be dishonest about that is to lead people to think that you're something you're not. And margins in show business are very tight, man. It's a brutal, brutal life. I remember when I lived in the city, I went to friend of mine was working on a film. They work, I don't know, they were like not low-level PAs, but they're like, key PAs on a fairly mid-budget film. Her roommate comes home, man, this poor fucking guy looked like he was about to drop dead as soon as he walked in the door, and all the life was drained from him. He had to be on set again in 6 hours, and the set was an hour from him between the subways and stuff. So he gets home looking like a corpse. He's got a shower, lucky to get 4 hours of sleep before he's got to hop on that subway again and go do it again. It's brutal. It's brutal. We all love the movies, man. But I guarantee you, those of you watching here who may be upset or maybe somewhat disillusioned by the idea that Hollywood, show business, yes, YouTube world, podcast world is not a labor-friendly world. Your favorite movie, I guarantee, had 100 people working themselves half to death for no money to make it. Maybe not no money, but literally they pay some of these interns $55 a day for 16 hours, right? And so that's how that business runs. It is unequal. It does suck. It would be great if we could all do better, right? And I'm not saying that he's doing worse. Like I said, this seems fairly standard, but that's the game. Now, in terms of the arbitration, this is interesting because TYT was obviously in on this piece. They gave interviews to Walker Bragman for this piece. And so they obviously were quick to capitalize on the piece. They made themselves a YouTube video, which is currently getting ratioed pretty hard, as I understand. But here they are lamenting the forced arbitration.
The arbitration, that stood out to me even more, right? Because arbitration can really work against the employee who has a grievance with the employer. So arbitration is common in many work contracts, and it is sometimes preferred by some union workplaces. But understand that it does put the employee at a disadvantage because it means that they don't have a jury hear their case, okay? And there's some secrecy to the arbitration process as well. Whereas, when someone is being sued, through a jury system, the accusations are more public and people can learn about what the employer is being accused of.
And in the civil system, as opposed to the arbitration system, the employee wins a much higher percentage of the time.
Right.
So the companies are not unaware of that. They're choosing to put you in arbitration because it costs less. They win a higher percentage of the time. And maybe the most important part is that if you lose arbitration, which employees do, I think about 80% of the time, then you have to pay the lawyer's costs of the employer and the entire arbitration proceedings, in which case you're totally screwed. That could wipe you out completely, especially if you're an average employee who's got that kind of money, right?
Right.
So it doesn't get any more onerous than this contract. You're basically telling an employee, you do anything I don't like and I'm gonna crush you.
All right, well, that last part is misleading because arbitration is not a sword for companies to use against employees. It's a shield that they use when employees have an issue with them. That's the whole way it works. Now, what he said about, employers win most of the time in arbitration, that's open to interpretation since most arbitrations get settled. So there's most of the time a deal. Now, who wins in that case is open to interpretation, who gets the better of the other party. And look, they are correct that there is a power imbalance in the arbitration world. And there's a power imbalance in a lot of these independent contractor negotiations. That's why, like, I drive for Uber. I drive for DoorDash. I am an independent contractor. They put terms of use on the screen. I either agree to those terms of use or I don't have a gig. We do not have equal bargaining power. And that is a problem when it comes to the independent contractor and contractee, if you will, relationship in any sort of business operation. So yes, they are right about that. But the alternative would be to hire your sound engineer and your graphics person and your video camera person and your streaming technician as employees. And that becomes prohibitively expensive for a lot of these smaller outfits. And Jimmy Dore's show, even though he has 1 million subs, is still relatively small compared to something like TYT, which has sound stages, multiple studios, multiple setups, and things like that. Again, that's just the nature of show business, right? It is very difficult to actually incorporate and hire employees on W-2s and start paying Social Security and Medicare. Of course, you'd love to do it. It's just not a reality that most of these little independent podcasts can set up. Now, with regards to arbitration, because they spoke, pretty unfavorably of forced arbitration. So I want to go to tyt.com here because I want to see if we could find the full video of what we just saw. But before we do that, since we are on their website, we do want to make sure that we're abiding by their terms of service. So let's see, do they have, down here, terms of use. Okay, let's just make sure. This is the user terms of use. So for visiting their website or for consuming TYT content, these terms of use govern your rights and obligations regarding the use of the Young Turks website, applications, and any and all related products and services collectively referred to as the app. These terms constitute a fully binding agreement between you and the Young Turks. By clicking accept below, which there is no accept button on this, but they do have an app and they refer to the app as the sort of aggregate of all of their media. By clicking accept below and using the app, you confirm that you agree to the following terms of use in TYT's privacy policy. As discussed further below, both you and TYT agree, with the limited exceptions noted below, to resolve all disputes between you and us through binding arbitration as further provided below. Arbitration means that you and TYT are each waiving the right to a jury trial or to participate in a class private attorney general action. So it seems to me, I'm no lawyer. My brother is a lawyer. As a Weiss, with that last name, we have access to lawyers, shall we say. He read that over for me earlier. Seems like TYT's customers are forced into arbitration if they should have a grievance against TYT. Are they forcing us into arbitration if we have a problem with them? Seems to me, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a lawman. Maybe they can clear that up because in their terms of use, it says there's a forced arbitration clause.
Yeah, they failed to mention that in that piece, in that hit piece that they were running too. I look at it like this: put yourself in Jimmy Dore's shoes. The more popular he is getting, on the, basically on the left, not just as a comedian, but on the left, the more slings and arrows are going to be, hurled his way. You'd be a fool not to have some sort of protection for yourself in this day and age, especially when people are coming at you, from all angles that are looking to take you down and get you to shut up and get you off the air like that. So, from a purely protective standpoint, this doesn't sound like something he would use. I don't know the man personally, but it just seems to me from a professional standpoint, this doesn't sound like something that you would have in place, in order to take advantage of an employee or a contractor or whatever. It just seems like a simple protection clause. And, the 10K thrown in there, to just kind of give it a little more teeth, kind of the bear standing up on its hind legs to scare at you, normally a lot, because if it's just going to go to arbitration anyway, it's kind of a moot point. It's just kind of like a signal saying, danger, beware, keep our privacy private sort of thing.
Sure. And look, just so we are 100% certain on what we mean by this. I don't fault TYT for these terms of service. You know, as you can see here, they have an opt-out provision way down, item 36. See, after all this, by the way, this is these are the fine print that nobody actually reads when it says you must agree to these terms to use this app. These are the things that no one actually reads. You can opt out of the arbitration provision if you mail a letter to the Young Turks at 6230 Wilshire and specify your name, your IP address, your mailing address, and your request to be excluded from the final binding arbitration procedure and class action private attorney general waiver specified in these terms. You have to do that, obviously, within 15 days of hitting accept, which, again, on this screen, there's no accept button because this isn't the app. But this applies to, like I said, all the Young Turks media, it seems. Podcasts, YouTube videos, videos on the website. I don't know if they do any written work. But, yeah, once again, it's not that I blame TYT for doing that. I don't blame Jimmy Dore for doing that. This is just how this all works. And that's the context that's missing in Bragman's article. Look, Bragman works for David Sirota's outlet. It was called The Lever. I don't know if they changed names since then. You know, he's mostly a writer. I've submitted writings to sites like Common Dreams, Counterpunch, you know, all these lefty sites, you know, which are nonprofits, and they have, people donate to them to keep them going. They don't pay writers. They pay zero. You know what I mean? Unless you're like, maybe they have a staff, but freelance writers who submit works to them that they distribute and use to raise money for their sites, they don't pay anything. That's why writers are broke. That's why artists are broke. You ever hear of a starving artist? Like, this is the ecosystem that we are all in here, right? Because we comment on politics, it may seem like we're something transcendent of that, but we're not. We're not. We're show people. We hopefully give you guys a good time, make you laugh a little bit, sometimes make you cry a little bit, make you think a little bit. And we hope that what we're doing is of value, just like a painter hopes that his painting is of value, or a filmmaker hopes he makes a film that's of value, that adds something to the society, to the culture and stuff. Yes, you hope to have that impact. But what you do day to day, you produce a consumer product called entertainment, and you have to sell that product. And it is very, very difficult to sell that product at a profit so you could sustain yourself doing it full time. Extremely difficult. This is why 9 out of 10 of your aspiring artist friends are fucking broke. It sucks. I wish it weren't like that, but that's the way it is, and that's the context missing from this piece.
I would say that to put a bow on it, because you and I as New Yorkers, we would know this best, as the mafia would say, hey, it's nothing personal. It's just business.
Strictly business, right? It's just business. Exactly.
It's just business. Hey, I come to your house on Sunday. We have some dinner, but you better have my money. I break your legs.
Exactly. All right. Let's go to topic number 2, shall we?
Yes, sir.
All right. Some folks are getting a little restless, but, we had to get our ball riding in. Very important.
I feel good. I'm a little chafed. I may need some talcum powder, but I think
Russ has got that. I think he has talcum powder. Maybe his roommate has the talcum powder. Is his roommate there?
Wait, he's got a roommate?
He does, yeah.
Shit. Oops. No, nothing to see here. Yeah, I'm Russell. I didn't go on my trip. I'm staying here. I have to be careful, because my Russell impression could go either way. It can either go Chuck Schumer, or it could go Richard Wolff. And it mostly dips into Richard Wolff territory. Where the economy sucks. Everything about this economy sucks.
The first time I ever talked to him, heard his voice, I thought he sounded like Dennis Miller. And apparently I'm not the only person who thinks that. We've actually seen that in the comments, that he has a Dennis Miller voice. And he also makes a lot of obscure references to history and pop culture, just like Miller does in his act. So next time you hear him, think about that. Close your eyes and imagine, could this be Miller?
Now I won't be able to get that voice out of my head now.
See, so you just did your Dennis Miller, and that wasn't that different from your Russell Doppler, really.
The only Dennis Miller I could think of is when he's doing the cancer jokes and he's like, and he's got the voice box and everything.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the cocaine days of Dennis Miller when he was like really fucked up. So
folks, we're up to 5944. Can we do a little better than that? There's 260 of you in here. Are you all subscribed? If you're all subscribed, then fine. But if you're not all subscribed, got to hit that subscribe button, please. We're trying to get Russell 6,000 subscribers before he lands in India. He lands in 4 hours. Can we get 56 more signups in the next 4 hours? And please like this stream if you haven't already, because that gets some other folks in here. All righty, everybody. So this story that we're going to do, this is a shorter segment because this is really kind of a setup into a bigger segment that I want to do on the Congressional Oversight Committee's Twitter hearings that they had yesterday. We're not going to get into all of it now because we don't have time, but this is sort of a little taste of a longer piece that I kind of want to do because we've been covering all of the Twitter Files drops, and so this is obviously a story that we are very much interested in. But former Twitter employees testified before Congress yesterday about censorship and their terms of service enforcement regarding misinformation, hate speech, yada, yada, yada. Now, among those who were asking the questions was, of course, AOC. And we're not even going to get to the substance of her interview here because she felt a need to, before even starting with her line of questioning, she felt a need to somehow, for some reason, sow doubt about the validity of the Hunter Biden laptop story, which has already been validated multiple times by multiple outlets. But let's hear her try and raise this issue again as if it's not already settled. This was quite bizarre.
Start off right here at the top here. This isn't even my line of questioning, but I'd like to submit to the record a Washington Post article now warning about Hunter Biden laptop disinformation, the guy who leaked it. Here's the deal. Before I even get into my questions, I think that the story here with the Washington Post reporting is that what they're saying right here, when the New York Post first reported in October 2020 that it had obtained contents of a laptop computer allegedly owned by Joe Biden's son Hunter, there was an immediate roadblock faced by other news outlets that hoped to corroborate reporting, as many did. The newspaper wasn't sharing what it obtained. New York Post had this alleged information and was trying to publish it without any corroboration, without any backup information. They were trying to publish it to Twitter. Twitter did not let them, and now they were upset.
Yeah, well, okay, first of all, what you're saying here implies that it's Twitter's job to vet the accuracy of every story shared on its platform. That is not Twitter's job. It is impossible for Twitter to do that. So if you're still going to try and raise doubts about the validity of the story, even if you can raise doubts about it, that still doesn't explain why Twitter felt the need to spike the story. News outlets get stories wrong all the time. All the time. Those aren't pulled. This was pulled, obviously, for political purposes, as the Twitter Files later confirms. But even the premise is wrong, which is that because this story wasn't, sufficiently vetted by the Post, it's Twitter's job to spike it? Since when? Since when? Are they spiking that Seymour Hersh piece now? That Seymour Hersh piece is based on one source who has not come forward. And Seymour Hersh is under no obligation to reveal his source. That's journalism 101. But no, Twitter's letting that go around. You can share that. You can read that. You can put that on Facebook. You can put that anywhere you like. Is that verified to the standard that would satisfy AOC, according to what she's talking about here? Probably not. But, of course, it's February 9th, not October 30th. There's not a major election next week, which is why we're allowed to share the Seymour Hersh article, but we weren't allowed to share that Hunter Biden laptop article. Warren, do you have anything to add before we let her finish?
Yeah, I mean, and if anything, the Seymour Hersh story is is more damning, because I mean, that predicates, an act of war. You're talking about this. I mean, yes, this is serious enough, but of course, with the timing of it all too, I mean, it's fairly obvious, even to people who aren't even paying attention to politics, that this was like some dirty tricks to keep Joe clean till the election. Like you said, it's not going to come out in October, and now you're seeing a little more of acceptance of that idea now. But that's the horse has already left. You're going to shut the barn door now. It's too late.
Yeah. No. Right. Absolutely. All right. Let's let her keep going.
I believe that political operatives who sought to inject explosive disinformation with the Washington Post couldn't get away with it. And
that's just astounding. That's just astounding. That is such a perverse distortion of what actually happened, which is that real information was suppressed out of a political motivation shared between Twitter and the Democratic Party, who pushed for that story to be suppressed, along with the FBI. What they said, 17 agencies signed a letter saying that was Russian disinfo. So what she says there is just a complete distortion of what actually happened. And now she says they're livid and they want the ability to do it again.
Now they're livid and they want the ability to do it again. They want the ability to inject this again. So they've dragged a social media platform here in Congress. They're weaponizing the use of this committee so that they can do it again. A whole hearing about a 24-hour hiccup in a right-wing political operation. That is why we are here right now. And it is...
First of all, it was not a 24-hour hiccup. The story was suppressed through the vote, which was about a week. That's called an October surprise. That never happened because the IC and Twitter basically colluded to spike that story. This was revealed in the Twitter files. We've seen the emails. We've seen the documents. There's no mystery about any of this. The history of how this happened was spelled out very, very plainly for all to see.
It's just an abuse of public resources, an abuse of public time. We could be talking about healthcare. We could be talking about bringing down the cost of prescription drugs. We could be talking about abortion rights, civil rights.
Oh, that's rich, because all that talking we did before the Republicans forced this hearing. Look at all that talk that they did about health care and prescription drugs and civil rights and voting rights. What of that got passed in the 2 years before the Republicans took over? Did I miss something, Warren? Or is it now that the Republicans are here wasting time with this hearing? Now we can't do the business that we were sent here to do, because the squad was ready to push all those bills through Congress or hold up the process until that happened. It wasn't until these Republicans showed up that now, we're stuck doing this.
Yeah, a whole 2 years before the Republicans showed up too. And you notice the only ones who are even mentioning the Twitter files are the conservatives, right? You're not hearing a peep from the Democrats about this, not even acknowledging it, because they're afraid it'll have some sort of legs on their side of the aisle too. So and why aren't they talking? And in that, so if they're not doing that, why aren't they talking to the intelligence community that was involved in this too? Where is their hearing? Why aren't we hearing from that too? This just seems like more par for the course. Where when she was supposed to come in and bring the ruckus, we all know that's all. It was more fuckus than ruckus, and now we have, it's just, they are just straight up, all the squad is just straight up going party line, trying to protect Joe at all costs, and it's just sad to see. You would think. I mean, I don't know how long this is going to persist. Like these proceedings, maybe they will bring members of the intelligence community in, but I doubt it. It just seems like this is just another dog and pony show, and she's just trying to run cover for the establishment. And if anybody can't see that now, they're just in the cult, and they're never going to see it.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think the intelligence community is probably viewed as the constant in this sort of formula, right? If this were a science experiment, they would just be that constant immovable thing. Whereas, yes, we all know the FBI, the CIA, they get to lie. Nothing happens to them ever. They are going to spin whatever version of reality suits them. And part of the charm, theoretically, of these tech companies being privately owned is that there should be some autonomy there to the point where they can push back against them, right? That would be like one of the novel things about them being privately owned, right? And operated in a for-profit way, is that they would be able to resist that. But of course, they didn't, right? And the Twitter files had a whole chapter on that too, about how the FBI really ingratiated themselves with executives at these social media companies. Just like, in the mob, when the FBI agent, buddies up to the mobster, right? Proposes as his friend for a few months, gets to know him, then shows him his badge. Okay, now you're in trouble. Now we have you by the balls. Now you have to do what we say, or else you're going to jail for 30 years. Do what we say, you'll go to jail for 10, right? That's a similar thing to how they operated this, how they ran this. But what she's saying here is just obviously just a complete perversion of reality. And the idea that the Republicans are just sort of doing this out of sort of hollow political motivation, as if the effort to spike the story, which ended up being a real story, was not exactly that. It's just, like I said, it's just so incredibly twisted. It's just so Orwellian. And look, if, pick a name out of a hat. If Senator Chris Coons were doing this, or if, Sean Patrick Maloney, if he were still in Congress, if he were doing this, if Nancy Pelosi were doing this, it'd be one thing. To see the person who we invested in as, a left movement carry this banner now is just like you said. They're in the cult now. This is it. I mean, going to these lengths to try and save face for Hunter Biden? I mean, are you kidding? Like, what is the benefit here? What is the payoff here?
I mean, it's not a nothing burger either. It's the son of the then vice president, working for this energy company in Ukraine, which happens to be embroiled in this war with a country that we're clearly trying to weaken. That's too many fucking coincidences. I mean, come on.
No, that's a great point. I mean, the idea that it was just the dick pics, as if that was the only information on this laptop and it's not in the public interest to know. Like, excuse me, the guy had a seat on the energy board of the country that we're now funneling tens of billions of dollars at a clip to perpetuate a war that is threatening to go nuclear any day. Like, of course, that is in the public interest to know. Of course, it was not a nothing burger. It wasn't just a salacious gossip TMZ type story. Oh, we're going to see the president's son's dick or whatever. Of course, there was more to it than that, obviously. Got a couple of super chats came in here. Just want to take these before we continue this segment here. Christian Drake, thank you so very much. Even Hunter admitted the laptop is his now. What is she even talking about? No, well, you'll see. You'll see that the main line comes up in a moment here. Yes, this hearing is the only thing holding us back from Medicare for All. Clown. Yeah, absolutely. Excellent point. And in terms of what is she even talking about, it actually gets worse, which we're going to play. I'm not going to attempt to say that name. Warren, do you have you want to try that one? V. Olaf Stodhir. Is that Icelandic? It sounds like it's Icelandic, right?
No, there's a lot of little things on top of the O's.
I don't know what all those things are, but thank you for the $11.99. Much appreciated. All right, let's let her keep going.
Voting rights, but instead we're talking about Hunter Biden's half-fake laptop story.
Oh, there's the money quote right there. We could be talking about all of this
prescription
stuff.
Drugs.
Let's just
we
play
can be
that
talking
again.
about abortion rights, civil rights, voting rights, but instead we're talking about Hunter Biden's half-fake laptop story.
It was not a half-fake laptop story. It was an entirely legitimate laptop story, as the Washington Post has since confirmed, and as the Twitter files have since revealed. The executives at Twitter knew it was a real story at the time they were censoring it. We saw the emails from Yoel Roth saying, how are we going to justify spiking this? We can't call these hacked materials. We have no idea that they're hacked materials. There's no policy violations here. This is all documented. This is all out there. How you could say in a public hearing that this was a half-fake story, that is the line to answer our super chat question up there. When you talk about what is she talking about? What are you talking about? That is just performance for the libs. And this is why I come back over and over again. I know I'm a broken record on this, but I have to be, because I'm the only one who has the balls to blame the voters, because that's where the blame really lies. And by voters, I don't mean all voters. I mean voters who vote in Democratic Party primaries. Voters who feel that because they carry the New York Times under their arm, they know all they have to know, and they don't care to listen to anybody else. She's speaking to those people. I'm calling this half fake, and you're going to believe me because you're going to believe everything I say because I'm on the good team. And so you take my word for everything. That is all that is. That is a signal. Nothing more, nothing less. And it's just really upsetting. I mean, at this point, it's not upsetting because at this point, what else would we think she would do? But if you take a big picture look, it's just really depressing that someone who we sent there as the sort of counterweight to the establishment Democrats would be trafficking in that just absurd, just overt gaslighting.
And 2018 seems so far away now. It just seems it's only been like, a handful of years, and you're starting to see like other members of Congress in the squad who are falling in line with it too, because they know that they got their marching orders from the DNC. That they were probably told, look, you're not, we're going to give you some crumbs here and there to satisfy the base, but for the most part, you're going to be you're going to be towing the line here, or we're going to primary you, and you're going to be gone. And the only thing that you're going to have left to deal with is
Jewish space lasers.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
All about Jewish space lasers. So,
I got to say, as a Jewish person,
I'm a Gentile, but I play one on TV. So it's all about. I just wanted to play the Jewish space laser.
And that's okay. I got to say, as a Jewish person myself, I always took that space laser thing as a bit of a compliment. Like, I was never offended by it. I mean, we don't actually have them, but I think it'd be kind of cool if we did. It's kind of nice that people out there think that we have them.
Jewish space laser sounds like an Israeli alternative rock band. From the early 90s, like around like a Space Hog, that kind of thing,
or even maybe like a Daft Punk kind of show.
Ooh.
Called the Jewish Space Laser.
Name drop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. you could even do that. That might be
live at the Civic Center, Jewish space lasers with special guest Daft Punk.
Exactly.
Yeah, so tickets on sale now at all Bebop Records in your area. So, yeah.
Hey, lads, just jumping in, digging Russell's beard. Well, thank you, Zach. We appreciate that super chat. For those who filed in late, this is Uncle Warren from the Extra Bulla Show filling in for Russell Dobular, who will be landing in India in about 5 hours. We are on a subscription drive. We're looking to get to 6,000 by the time Russell lands. So when he gets his Wi-Fi or his data back and he opens that phone and he checks, we could be at 6,000. So please like this stream and subscribe to this channel. We added a few more. We're at 5948 as of my last count here. I'm going to refresh this. Yeah, 5948. So at this point, maybe most of you guys have already subscribed, but if you didn't subscribe, just hit that button. It's free, of course. We're not asking you to become a paid member, nothing. Just hit that subscribe button so you could stay in touch with us, so you get notified whenever we go live or drop a video. We hope you'll find it worthwhile. All right, we're going to put it all on the line with this last segment of the evening here. We're gonna take a chance
need some water.
Here. Yeah, we're going to need some water. Yeah.
I wish this was moonshine.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Okay. I'm ready to rock.
So, listen, the safe thing to do would be to not talk about this at all. But, we didn't get where we got doing the safe thing, right? The Rage Against the War Machine rally is set for February 19th in Washington, D.C. and it has attracted a roster of high-profile speakers from all across the political spectrum, obviously, from 2016 Green Party presidential nominee Jill Stein to a famous sort of libertarian Ron Paul. The event is sponsored by the People's Party and the Libertarian Party and is meant as both an anti-war demonstration and a display of sort of cross-partisan unity on an issue where there is common ground between left-wing organizations like MPP and, right of center, at least economically speaking, organizations like the Libertarian Party. Now, some speakers and some organizations like Code Pink and Veterans for Peace have already dropped out of the event, citing the inclusion of Scott Ritter, among some others, as their justification. Ritter's criminal past, as well as his recent comments about the war in Ukraine, have alienated some prospective participants and probably some attendees as well. Now, the Libertarian Party, who once again has co-sponsored this rally, put out the following statement here. Scott Ritter is not a libertarian, and we would prefer that he stay home from the rally as he originally proposed when event coordinators first confronted him about his criminal history. He was convicted of exposing himself to basically a federal officer posing in a chat room as an underage girl. Libertarians hold as sacrosanct the rights of children to be free from abuse. Pardon me. His criminal convictions are despicable and contradict our values. In addition to his crimes over the weekend, he declared that he is not anti-war, which directly contradicts the purpose of the rally. We think this event would be more successful without his involvement, and your support for true anti-war activists will ensure their message is elevated to ring loudest and clearest in Washington. So they have not withdrawn, but they are clearly making their stance known that they would like to see Ritter disinvited. And so with regard to his criminal history, that is for people to decide themselves how they feel about that. He paid his debt that society felt he owed them. He was a thorn in the side of some very powerful people and some very powerful agencies. I have my suspicions about how they got him. The agent who was snooping around that chat room claims he was just out there to catch predators that night and just happened to pick at random a guy like Scott Ritter, former UN weapons inspector, who has just, like I said, been a real thorn in the side of a lot of very powerful people in very high places for a long time. There was an FBI sting operation here in my hometown, Newburgh, New York. 4 black Muslim men were set up by an FBI informant, and they were accused and convicted of a conspiracy to commit a terrorist act in the Bronx. You may have heard about that. That arrest happened in 2009. HBO distributed a great documentary called The Newburgh Sting, exposing through actual video footage, because that case went to trial. Those 4 guys were so insistent that they were innocent that they did not take a deal to go to jail for a reduced sentence. They actually fought it at trial, which meant the records became public records, which means all the video that the informant took became a public record. So they cut all that into this wonderful movie, which is now available nowhere. It's not even on HBO Max. Who knows why that is? The point is, if the FBI wants to make you look guilty, they can make you look guilty, right? Now, it's not for me to say that Scott Ritter is not guilty. It's not for me to say that, and I'm not saying that. And of course, look, I'm a parent myself. Obviously, I take these things extremely seriously. But this is a man who, like I said, he served time, he paid his debt to the world, and he is now a public citizen. So that's how I would feel about it. Me, personally. Doesn't mean I would be friendly with Scott Ritter. I would not back out of an event for that reason. Now let's take something else here, because this is, to me, the more substantial question in this matter. The tweet that the Libertarian Party was referring to here is this tweet here, when Scott Ritter says, I don't claim to be anti-war, never did. This was sent on this past Saturday, February 4th. There are rabid dogs out there, and we need Atticus Finches to shoot them. I do, however, object to the senseless shootings of healthy dogs. And then he says Ukraine is a rabid dog, and he adds Russia is Atticus Finch. Thus ends my lesson. Now, from the second this war started, and I have the receipts to prove this, it's not on YouTube because we weren't on YouTube then, but it's on Facebook. Russell and I went live with a friend of ours, and we railed against this war from minute one. From minute one, we said this could have and should have been avoided. And how could the West allow this to get to this place? Turns out, of course, as Seymour Hersh's article hints at, we knew this was coming, and we've been egging this on for quite some time. And so geopolitically, if you want to make a statement that NATO is this out-of-control entity that is sort of comparable to what you might call a rabid dog, and NATO has to be disbanded, I'd be all for that. The statement, Ukraine is a rabid dog, is extremely problematic, to say the least, because what that implies is that ordinary Ukrainian people are somehow deserving of the hell that has been wrought upon them by war. And to me, and I would assume, and maybe I'm not right about this, I can't speak for anyone but myself, philosophically, as an anti-war person since 9/11, since I was 15, the reason I have been anti-war is because I fundamentally, at my core, believe that ordinary people, anywhere and everywhere in the world, are just that. They're just ordinary people living their lives, minding their own business, do not want any trouble with anyone. And when you make a statement as blanket as Ukraine is a rabid dog, and maybe he didn't mean it this way, I understand Twitter imposes that 280 character limit. You don't always put something out in exactly the right words that you would choose if you had more room to work with. But that implies, like I said, that ordinary people had this coming. And to me, that is the core opposite of an anti-war message. Chris Hedges is also speaking at the rally. He has not withdrawn. He wrote a wonderful article at the start of this war called The Greatest Evil is War. And he has a book out of that same title. But here's what Hedges writes. All right. Sorry. Processing. 1 second. Stand by. Why is this giving me a hard time? Here we go. The primary lesson in war is that we as distinct individuals do not matter. We become numbers, fodder, objects. Life, once precious and sacred, becomes meaningless, sacrificed to the insatiable appetite of Mars. No one in wartime is exempt. War is hell. War is demonic, as he said. War is maggots eating children's eyes. War is, in the case of Ukraine, mothers giving birth in bomb shelters because the hospitals were not safe. Whatever you feel about the geopolitics of this war and who provoked who, and like I said, I am largely with everyone at this rally in terms of how they feel towards that. That is not something you can put on the ordinary Ukrainian citizen. The average Ukrainian is not an Azov stan. The average Ukrainian is not out to ethnically cleanse Russians in certain parts of Ukraine. The average Ukrainian is that mom who has to give birth in a bomb shelter. And a statement like that implies that she deserves it, and that is an obscene thing to say, to put it mildly. Now, were I invited to speak at this, and I probably could have wrangled an invitation if I wanted to, because I know a few people who are involved in this at fairly high levels. Were I involved to speak at this, would I withdraw? And my answer is no, I would not. And the reason I say no, I would not, is because I also fundamentally at my core believe that the antidote to bad speech is more speech. And so if there's someone appearing at that rally who's going to make a statement like that, I feel not only should I not surrender my place at that podium and at that microphone, if anything, I'm going to double down on my efforts to be there and articulate my point of view. Chris Hedges, obviously, we could tell from what we just wrote there, has a very different point of view from that of Scott Ritter. And he's not giving up the mic. And I don't know Chris Hedges, but I would wager that his thinking is along the lines of mine. If there's someone there I disagree with, that gives me a responsibility to go over there and say my point of view. Because not only is this an anti-war rally at heart where we are all united on the idea of no more weapons to Ukraine, but also the premise of this rally is that cross-partisan coalitions are possible and that coalitions with imperfect people are possible and viable. That's the whole premise of the rally. And so for me personally, to withdraw over something like this would undercut that. Now, I know some people who were going to speak at the rally and who are no longer speaking at the rally, and I respect them too. This is not a polemic against them. I understand the controversy here, and I understand there are people for whom this stuff is a deal breaker. But for me personally, like I said, I think the antidote to bad speech is not less speech, it's more speech. And for that reason, I would still appear at the rally if I were one of these people who were wrestling over this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much on the same page as you. I wouldn't pull out of this thing either. This is the way I look at this. If this was like a rally for victims of like sexual assault or something in that vein, yeah, of course not. You wouldn't want somebody who was convicted to be there. That would upset people in that respect. And there are people that are going to be that I was looking on Twitter today. There's going to be people there who are victims of crimes that are similar to what he was convicted of, and they have their sensitivities. I'm totally, I totally understand where those folks are coming from. The way I know the burning house fire analogy has been done to death, but I look at it like this. If you're in your neighborhood and the house is burning down, there's no fire, the fire department's not coming. It's up to you to put the fire out, or at least try to attempt to. Are you really going to care if your neighbor has something totally unaffiliated to the problem at hand? Does the person have hands? Can they carry buckets of water? That's what we're talking about here. This is an all hands on deck situation where we're closer to nuclear war than we've ever been before in the history of the world, and that's saying something, really. The Cuban Missile Crisis was no joke, but we're getting closer to danger than we were back in the 60s. Now, I've listened to Ritter. Mostly he does a show with Garland Nixon, I believe, on YouTube. I've seen him on there consistently, and he ex-Marine, always speaking in military terms, right? So when I hear him talking about these rabid dogs of Ukraine, because my dad was military too, and I have a lot of family members who are military, and they're kind of in the same vein. They'll speak in generalities, but whenever they're talking professionally about it, they're speaking about a specific type of person. So I would assume that Ritter is talking about the Azov battalion and whoever the Nazis are there, right? Now, granted, the Ukrainians aren't a monolith either, right? I'm not saying that they're, rabid dogs, but they're humans who are susceptible to propaganda just like anybody else, right? I mean, look at the warmongers in our country, right? Who are defending, who are just salacious about it, and they probably have their, hands in the pocket, or the military industrial complex has their hands in their pocket kind of situation, right? So, I mean, I would give Ritter the benefit of the doubt, saying that he's talking about these specific Nazi elements in Ukraine and not the people as a whole. But as you say, that's not a good look. to just put a blanket statement out there for people, because it does lead to misinterpretation. You know, I'm reading some of the comments that are saying, no, he was just taken out of context. It's like, well, he put himself out of context.
And he could put himself in context. He could provide context.
Yeah,
it's been 5 days. You have your Twitter account. He's fired off many, many tweets since then. Why not clarify it?
He's in total control of that. You know, maybe he's just not communication savvy in that regard. Maybe he doesn't have his finger on the pulse of, you know, how things are in these leftist spaces, you know. But I mean, his information, I mean, to exclude him from an event like even an anti-war rally where he says he's not anti-war, but he has said on many occasions he's anti-nuclear war. And I think,
well, of course, I mean,
you know, like this is strange bedfellows getting together, but we have to.
Tulsi Gabbard's not anti-war. She just got back from a jihadist hunting mission in Africa. She tweeted out the other day. You know what I mean? So yeah, of course.
Yeah, if we're specifically talking about nuclear war and not feeding this beast billions and billions of dollars, this Ukrainian governmental, you know, bureaucracy beast that's chewing up this money, and God knows where the money is going. You know, I can understand that you want to say, okay, yes, we have to be against that. We have to be, and we are really getting close to nuclear war, and so we need every voice that's knowledgeable, and Scott Ritter is very knowledgeable, and having his voice there, because Ritter has people who watch him, who follow him, that wouldn't necessarily jive with a lot of these leftists that are taking part in this either, right? But if he's bringing those folks, you know, on board, or if he's allowed to at least try to do that, I mean, isn't that worth at least having him on board for that? And you can fight these other battles later, but this is like the main battle that we have to fight right now.
Yeah, and like I said, it is a forum where you can express your point of view on this whole war, this whole situation that the world is now finding itself in. Chris Hedges wrote that piece as soon as the war started. Chris Hedges is a war reporter himself. Chris Hedges is not an establishment shill. Chris Hedges is not a psyop, right? Chris Hedges is not anybody you can label in that way. War is hell. War is to be opposed because war is the ultimate indignity. It's the ultimate vulgarity. It's the ultimate obscenity, you know, and it is obscene for the people who have to live under it. And so in this case, you know, part of what I said as soon as this war broke out was this should have been avoided first and foremost for the people of Ukraine. Like, I wasn't against the war because I wanted the destruction of Ukraine. I was against the war because I wanted the preservation of Ukraine. I don't want to not fund the Ukrainian war effort because I want Ukraine to be destroyed by Russians. No, I want to not fund the Ukrainian war effort so that the parties have to come to the negotiating table and work out a peace deal so that the ordinary people in Ukraine can live, right? And so, my angle is not to punish the people of Ukraine. It's actually the opposite. A peace deal would benefit most of all the people in Ukraine who are dying every day because of this hellish situation that their government has put them in. The West has put them in. Obviously, NATO has put them in. And so we can all be on the same page there. But I think, like Hedges says here, I mean, he writes so clearly about this. War makes numbers of us all. Life is no longer precious in war, which means respect for humanity no longer exists in war. And so, for me, what informs an anti-war ethos is that belief that life and humanity is a precious thing. And that means all human life, no matter where the people are, right? Ordinary people do not deserve this.
No, they don't. And even in conventional war, I mean, set aside nuclear war for a second. There's no winners in nuclear war. There's no winners in conventional war. either. Even if you gain territory, even if you achieve your military objectives, everybody loses in war. And who are the ones that lose the most? It's the people, right? I mean, you think about this. We just got done with the forever war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Some people say, you know, we're still there and it's still going on. I mean, yeah, I could see that. But now we needed a new thing to generate, you know, this constant, you know, though they're saying, well, they're doing this to weaken Russia. But they didn't admit that at first. They said, oh, it was for the Ukrainian people. But then later, we're like, yeah, it's to weaken Russia. And as long as they keep funding Ukraine, as long as that money keeps flowing in, this is going to be a forever war. They start, like you said, you stop the funding, then they got to come to the table. And that's the thing. It's like, well, if they come to the table, then they'll negotiate something, and then it'll be over. Russia will have liberated this territory these people were living in that wanted the Russians to come in and help them, you know, and but as long as we keep feeding the beast, it's just going to keep going and going and going. And we got to starve the beast. We got to stop this. Otherwise it's just going to keep going.
Yeah, and look, one thing that Ritter says is true is that Ukraine cannot win. Russia has another few 100,000 troops that they're lining up, ready to pull in. You're talking about Russia. You're talking about an enormous military power. I mean, this is just a slaughter. And like I said, ending the slaughter means helping the Ukrainian people get on with their lives so they can live with the dignity that war has stripped them of. Mason Stone, $4.99. Thank you very much. We're going to run through some of these super chats here, and I'll respond to some other comments too, some mediocre chats, as we'll call them, some average chats. Bennett, that's my dad. Thank you, Dad. Ritter has paid the price for personal mistakes. It's ugly that this has come up. The rally should be about the thousands who show up to make a stand against the war, not the people on the stage. I mean, look, I agree with that. You know, this was going to come up, though. You know, you think the establishment came at Bernie Sanders hard. You know, they did. And the media came at Bernie hard. And Bernie ultimately proved that he was loyal to them before the grassroots movement that he ran to represent. But they came at him with everything they got. You talk about a cross-partisan alliance protesting against the military-industrial complex. Yeah, they're going to throw everything they have at you. They're going to do everything they can to smear you and undermine you and cut the legs out from under you. And putting a guy like Scott Ritter on the docket puts you at risk of that. Now, once again, I'm not saying they were wrong to do that. I'm just saying this was not, it's not like, oh, this came up and we couldn't have seen that coming. No, I think you could have seen that coming because you know that they're going to use everything in their arsenal to, you know, come at you. Now, Robin first said, thank God Due Dissonance is speaking about this. I trust you to look at it with honesty. I thank you for that, Robin. But and forgive me if I'm wrong about this, but I think I noticed further on down the chat that, yeah, you said here, the girl was 14. There was no girl. It was an FBI agent who was snooping around the chat room, supposedly hunting for sexual predators to set up. And like I said, I'm supposed to believe that he randomly came upon Scott Ritter. I mean, you talk about a coincidence. I'm not saying it's not possible, but that's a red flag for me. But there was no victim. There was no victim. He claims that when the person said they were 15, he thought they were acting out some fantasy or some fetish because it was an 18 and older message board. Was he telling the truth about that? Again, I don't know. Who am I to say that, right? And there are people in here on the other side who are saying it was 100% bullshit. He didn't do anything. I can't say that either. I don't know. I can't say that if I don't know. What we can say is that he paid the price that this country said he owed. And now the way it works is you get to be a person again, right? That doesn't mean you get platformed everywhere you want. But he has a YouTube channel. He's on YouTube, right? He's on this platform. He's got about 60,000 subs, doing a hell of a lot better than we are. So, you know, he's out there, right? He is a public figure still. So it's not like this is a verboten guy who like they pulled out of a jail cell and are putting on the stage. Like, no, he is out there. He has a past that are. Sorry, go ahead, Warren.
Well, I was going to say he's a powerful voice, and even if he didn't have that conviction, even if that never happened, right? Let's say it didn't happen, they'd still go after him for what he said in the tweet about, how he said he's not anti-war. If it's not one thing, I mean, I'm not trying to belittle anybody's, sensitivity to his conviction. I'm just saying they pull out the stops. If it's not that, it would be something else. And if it's not the anti-war tweet, it would have been something else. It's like you said, they're gonna turn over every stone to try and find something to stop the momentum of what potentially could be, one of the biggest war rallies, war protest rallies since the Gulf War, or since the war in Iraq, and maybe possibly bigger. Hell, maybe it may have been rival the Vietnam War if the potential is there. I'm not saying that would actually happen. I'm saying the potential is there, especially if you're getting people from different, like you said, this cross section of people who normally do not associate with each other coming together and focusing on these specific goals. That's a scary thought for the establishment, and they're not going to let that happen.
No, not without throwing everything they got at it, for sure.
Exactly.
Virtuoso, thank you for the $10, my friend. Keaton, I saw the documentary. I'm assuming you're talking about the Newberg Sting documentary, and read the investigative series in the Village Voice. The only paper that I think made an effort to expose the FBI committing entrapment. This is why we need a free press. Yeah, does anybody remember that horrific limo crash in Albany a few years back that like killed 20 people? There were like 20 college kids piled in the back of a limo that didn't have the correct licensing to be operating. The owner of that limo company was the FBI informant that set up those 4 Newberg guys. That's what they do, is they find criminals and they say, you can either go to jail or you're going to work for us now. And they kept that guy out on the street. He ended up running an illegal limo company that crashed and killed, like I said, 20 kids, I think, 19 or, just a horrible, horrible thing. I got some more. Oh, Bennett Weiss again. My dad again. Another $5. Thank you. Getting some support from the fam tonight. The U.S. is a rabid dog.
Dad.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Dad, show me some love, brother.
Yeah. The U.S. is a rabid dog. The average American is not. Well, that speaks to my point, right? Like, even in the aggressor country, what do we, as ordinary Americans, I mean, we are political dissidents here, right? That's the theme of the show. But let's say we weren't. Let's say we were just ordinary apolitical people who enjoyed the benefits of living in an evil, expansive imperial power that wrought all this havoc on the world. Do we deserve to give birth in a bomb shelter because the hospital is not safe? No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe the average person invites that kind of violence upon themselves. And that, to me, is what it means to be anti-war. All right, I think that's everything we got tonight. We're going to have a last call for Super Chats and last call to like and subscribe. Warren, I think we made it out of that segment in one piece. What do you think?
Still sweating. Probably gonna need a second shower, but
yeah, make sure, because you don't want to sweat all over Russell's bed.
Well, I mean, when you talk about something, I know, right? Although he did request that before he left. Anyway, that's a story for another day. But it's stuff like this that when people are afraid to talk about this stuff, that's when the establishment wins, when you're too scared to discuss this, because they want you to be scared of speaking about important subjects like this. They'll censor you on social media. They'll kick you. They'll take your channel off of YouTube. They'll do anything in their power to keep you silent, because if you're not silent, that means somebody else might be listening, and then they won't be silent, and then somebody else will be listening, and then it goes on and on and on and on, and that's how the fire starts. The fire of rebellion, the fire of revolution, if you want to call it that. And they have to douse it at every spark that they see. They have to put that out. Otherwise, I mean, look at France. Look at what's going on in Europe. The way they protest. The way people are in the streets.
Yeah, man, forget it.
In England,
a pound of spinach gets above a certain price, they burn Paris to the ground. Yeah.
Right? We got $13 dozen eggs here, and we're still like, oh, why are eggs so expensive?
Yeah,
right. Like, no, we should be on the fucking. We should be out in the streets with those goddamn eggs. That's what we should be doing. Like, here's your fucking eggs. Get your shine box. Here's your fucking eggs. All right. All right.
Exactly.
All that there.
Getting fired up now. See, we were talked about nuclear war. We talked about censorship. We talked. Nothing gets Warren fired up like the price of eggs. Yeah, he's ready.
I love eggs too, man. Fuck those eggs.
radicalized by egg prices. That's what, when people interview you, late in life. What radicalized you, Warren? Was it Vietnam? Was it Iraq? Was it, the pandemic? It was those eggs. Those fucking eggs.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Is that really his dad? Yes, Bennett Weiss is really my dad. Jessica. Barry Weiss is not really my sister. I only say that as a joke, but Bennett Weiss is actually my dad. Warren, are you there? Okay, cool. Warren, I feel like we owe the audience a sort of M. Night Shyamalan type twist ending to this episode, because I feel like a lot of the audience is not onto the central joke of the show. I think a lot of the audience actually believes. You get where I'm going?
I think so.
Okay, so can we shock them now? Can we give them that wedding ring on the floor 6 cents shot? Can we do that visually now, or do you have to say it? You know what I'm getting at, right?
Eggs.
Look around you, Warren. Look around you.
Yeah.
I think our audience is under the impression that you are where you appear to be.
Look, I'm going to say Harlem this time of year is very nice. Okay. All right. Since we're here, okay. Let me tell you. You got a nice crew here. You got.
I tried to do it. Go ahead.
So, I live basically in Brooklyn in the Blues Brothers Flophouse room. Okay, if you've ever seen the Blues Brothers and they go back to Elwood's Flophouse, that's basically where I'm living in. It's a glorified walk-in closet. So when Russell said he was going to India, I thought, well, I'll just break into his apartment and live there. I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, he left the window open. And I can climb a steam pipe pretty well too. So I'm very agile. I don't look.
Did you climb the steam pipe? Is that why you weren't up for all that ball riding tonight? Because your legs were tired from. He was.
No, my balls were riding on the steam pipe. So I had enough ball riding of my own, and I just couldn't fit into my schedule more balls to ride, unfortunately. But I'm making a conscious effort to make sure that those balls get ridden sometime in the near future. At least I hope so. But no, I'm not in Russell's apartment. This was all a bit. It was all a story.
I was hoping you could turn off the green screen now so that we can get the reveal. That's what I meant by doing.
You want the reveal? Is that what you want?
I want the cinematic reveal. See, look at that. Why do you like that?
Like that?
Like that. Now here's the question: were you in Russell's apartment, and is that the green screen? No, but no, I thought we pulled that off really, really well. That looked fantastic.
I think I'm in a void. I think I'm in the, what is it? In the dark place, the upside down, maybe.
Yeah, the upside down.
I forget. Now I know.
No, that's from Get Out. Yeah, you're in the white upside down. No, not the upside down. No, it's not the upside down. The upside down is Stranger Things. The sunken place is Get Out. That's what you're thinking.
The sunken place. That's what I was thinking of.
Yes.
It actually looks like I'm on the Charlie Rose set, if you think about it, with the all black background there.
Yes, that was a classy looking set. I love that set.
Very minimalistic. Sans the pervert. Just the resident one right here. So
yeah,
I actually broke
a southerner, just like you. You're a southerner. You're from Mississippi, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I broke into the old Charlie Rose set, and kind of like how Kramer had the Merv Griffin set.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
In his apartment.
Yep.
I felt like I needed an homage to Seinfeld, since you and I are such big fans.
Yes.
That I needed the Charlie Rose set, but I didn't want to get sued by Seinfeld because he's very litigious. He'll sue you.
Oh, really?
No definite. Yeah.
Good to know.
Giddy up. Yeah, he will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Good to
anyway.
know. All right, let me take. I think I got a couple more super chats here, and then we will let you go here. What do we got here? Oh, okay, great. Well, we got a few more. Thank you guys very much. Just making sure I didn't miss any, because a couple shows ago we missed some. I want to make sure I don't miss any tonight. All right, I don't think I'm missing any here. All right, we're gonna hit this one here first. Jao Wu, thank you very much. What should Russia have done when Ukraine increased their shelling to the Donbass, negotiating Minsk 3? No, look, once again, I please do not misunderstand me. I'm not saying, and neither is Chris Hedges, they're not saying that Russia was not provoked. They're not saying that Ukraine as a state, along with the United States and NATO and the West, do not bear a certain responsibility for this war. Chris Hedges has said that they do. I think they do. But that's different from saying that the people, the ordinary people, are implicated in that. And I believe, and maybe he didn't mean it this way, but again, it's being perceived this way. Scott Ritter knows that tweet is being perceived this way. So there's no doubt he knows about that. He's not living under a rock. So if he didn't mean it that way, he can clarify that. And I think he should. All right. But thank you. I hope that answered your question. Red Z, good job, fellas. Good analysis and delivery. Thank you, Red Z. We appreciate that very much. Your mother was a hamster. Thank you for the $2. Appreciate that. Your mother was a hamster. He's one of the most depraved fans of ours. You remember the Vanguard said, we cater to Jimmy Dore's most depraved and delusional audience. That's going to be our publicity quote on the poster for this show.
This isn't the Vanguard? I thought we were on the Vanguard.
Oh, are you in the wrong place?
My agent told me I was going to be on the Vanguard with those kids who live in their van or something, right? Live in a van.
The Kansas City kids there. PMC, great show tonight. The DD bench is deep. It is. We got a deep bench. We have some more guest hosts. JB from Revolutionary Blackout Network is going to be co-hosting on Sunday. My dad gave us another $5. Said, great job, Warren. Indeed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's everything. Oh, Tyler Johnson. Thank you guys for your generosity. See, we didn't alienate too many of you. We were afraid of how that last segment might be perceived. You know, you go there, you know, that's what they call in the business a no-win when you go there and do something like that.
I'm not gonna lie. I think I pooped myself a little bit, but it's okay. I'm an older person. I was wearing Depends undergarments. So
it's Russell's chair anyway.
Yeah, it's Russell's chair. It's Brad chair. He's fine. He'll never.
It has a month to air out. Just leave the window open next to it. It was really nice of Russell to allow guest hosts the use of his apartment. Nice show, guys. Thanks. Thank you very much, Tyler. We appreciate that. Yes, this isn't the Vanguard. It's the Main-Guard. Good line, Weird Pilgrim. Thank you. Let's see here. Mother was a hamster again with a super sticker. Thank you so much. Thank you guys very much. All right. Thank you guys very much. I think that concludes this evening's program. I'm going to let our patron scroll go one more time. You can support the show by going to patreon.com/DoDissidents. While that's scrolling, though, I do want to give the floor to my friend Warren here so he can plug his channel and his show. You should all go subscribe to Warren's channel. It's a lot of fun. He does a great show. As you can see, he's a very original, funny, and entertaining and thoughtful guy. So, yeah, get your plugs in.
All right. Yeah, so we're kind of expanding. So I have Extra Bulla Live on Monday nights usually. There is the Extra Bulla Secret Show at midnight on Saturdays. That's all Eastern time. And for all you folks out there who are into like the paranormal and UFOs and stuff like that, I have a new show coming out probably this weekend sometime called Mundus Ultra. I do love me some Latin names. It means the world beyond. And I'm totally excited about that. And so if you could subscribe to Mundus Ultra and Extra Bulla, I'd appreciate you. It is free, like the man says. Doesn't cost you only a couple of clicks, maybe a little carpal tunnel, but it's well worth it.
Well worth it. Well worth it. And even, contribute to the chats and all that stuff. You'll be glad you did. Well, thank you guys for a great show. You guys were a great audience, very lively chat, very big crowd in here. How do we do on our subscriptions? Please subscribe to the channel on the way out if you haven't already. I promised Russell I'd try to get us to 6,000. We're at 5953. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you very much to our patrons. You can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents to sign up. Go subscribe to Extra Bulla's shows. Extra Bulla, why don't you put your stuff in the chat so people have that link they can just click on right now. I have one more super chat. I got to read this before we go. Oh, it's another compliment. Really like this Warren guy. We'll follow him. I always wanted an uncle. Perfect. See, there you go. Warren is.
Oh, I know that guy. He's very biased, but I'll take it anyway.
Well, there you go. Right. Yeah, exactly. Gotta take what you can. Thank you very much, folks. We will be back on Sunday, February 12th. That is Super Bowl Sunday. I am hosting that show with JB from the Revolutionary Blackout Network. We're really looking forward to that. That will be at a special time because it's Super Bowl Sunday. We are broadcasting that at 4 p.m. Eastern before the game. We're not going to compete with the game. We don't think that's very wise to do, so we will be on at 4 p.m. this Sunday, February 12th. We hope you can join us there. In the meantime, like I said, subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Rumble and Rockfin if you're on those platforms too. We are on those as well, and we will see you all next time. Thank you very much. Warren, my friend, a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank
See you guys.
Remember, space lasers.
Yeah,
we're always with you.
We'll keep out for those space lasers. Thank you guys very much.
Please clap.